During the 2023 US Open, a WTA referee allowed Laura Siegemund to repeatedly violate the shot clock, while Coco Gauff was penalized for serving too quickly. At one point, Coco had to approach the chair herself to demand equal enforcement. After watching her opponent break the rules 4 times with only a single penalty, the umpire's bias became so obvious that even the crowd turned against Siegemund, though instant regret soon set in for everyone involved in this officiating disaster. The question remains, was the umpire incompetent, corrupt, or simply overwhelmed by the moment? Let's break down exactly what happened during this first-round match, because the details make the officiating look even worse than it initially appears. Gauff faced Laura Siegemund in the first round at Arthur Ashe Stadium, with a packed home crowd cheering for the American star. Coco was the favorite and expected to advance, but Siegemund had other plans. She used every gamesmanship tactic in the book to slow down the match and disrupt Coco's rhythm. Under WTA rules, players are allowed 25 seconds between points, enforced by a shot clock that counts down from 25 to 0. If a player hasn't served by the time it hits 0, they receive a time violation, an objective rule with no room for interpretation. Yet Siegemund repeatedly let the clock run to 0. According to Coco, it happened at least 4 times before she finally spoke up. Despite these clear, measurable violations, the umpire issued Siegemund only a single time violation. Meanwhile, Coco was serving at a normal, medium pace. She wasn't rushing or trying to catch her opponent off guard. She was simply playing tennis at a reasonable tempo. And somehow, that became a problem.
As if she didn't have the crowd on her side enough.
Well, she spoke her piece, and she was right.
By the third set, Coco had had enough. She walked up to the chair and confronted the umpire directly, pointing out the obvious imbalance. She's gone over the clock about 4 times, and you've given her a time violation only once. How is this fair? I'm going at normal speed, medium pace. This isn't a tantrum or disrespecting the official. It's a legitimate question about why the rules are being enforced unevenly. The fact that she had to ask for equal treatment highlighted just how poorly the match was being officiated. The umpire eventually took action later in the set, giving Siegemund a point penalty for another shot clock violation. That penalty pushed Coco to a 5-1 lead in the deciding set. But in a surreal twist, Siegemund then walked up to the umpire and complained that Coco was serving extremely fast, almost unreasonably fast, and I'm always here. And one time I go to the towel, Siegemund said. According to her logic, Coco playing at normal speed was unfair, but repeatedly violating the shot clock was completely fine, because Siegemund needed a moment to grab her towel. Let that sink in. The player who broke the shot clock at least 4 times had the audacity to complain that her opponent was playing too fast, and the umpire entertained the complaint instead of shutting it down immediately. There's no rule against serving fast. There's no requirement to wait for your opponent to feel emotionally ready, as long as they are given reasonable time to get into position. The shot clock exists specifically to prevent the kind of stalling Siegemund was doing. Yet somehow, Coco following the rules became controversial, while Siegemund breaking them earned sympathy from the chair. Coco later explained her frustration during the post-match press conference, revealing just how much pressure she was under throughout the match.
I was really patient the whole match. She was going over the time since the first set, and I never said anything. I would look at the umpire, and she didn't do anything. And then, obviously, the crowd started to notice that she was taking long, so you would hear people in the crowd yelling time or, doing the watch motion. It got to the point where she was doing it a lot on my serve, and my issue with that was the ref was calling the score like a couple seconds after the point was finished. So it made it look like I was serving abnormally fast, but that's where that was getting annoyed too. And it wasn't like we were having long rallies. So I was finally happy when the time violation came. But obviously on my serve, I was like, she has to be ready when I'm serving.
Coco explained that she had been patient throughout the entire match. Siegemund had been going over time since the first set, and at first, Coco never said anything. She would glance at the umpire, hoping for enforcement, but nothing happened. On Siegemund's serve, even though Coco was supposed to be ready on time, she showed extra courtesy and allowed additional seconds. But eventually, Siegmund began doing the same thing on Coco's serve as well. Coco's frustration wasn't just about the repeated time violations. The umpire was also calling the score several seconds after each point ended, which made it appear as though Coco was serving abnormally fast, when in reality she was playing at a normal pace. This detail is crucial. The slow score announcements created the illusion that Coco was rushing, giving Siegmund ammunition for her complaints. Whether this was intentional incompetence or just poor timing didn't matter. The effect was the same. It made Coco look like the problem, even though she was following all the rules.
To open this set.
I know, but it's the rules. He's not allowed to sit.
Sigmund must have said something.
Coco also admitted that she doesn't like confrontation and wasn't sure if she was right to speak up until the rule violations happened repeatedly. She spent the entire match weighing whether to say something, worried about coming off as a complainer and concerned about how her public image would be perceived. Think about that pressure. A 19-year-old in the first round of the US Open, on home soil, facing an opponent blatantly breaking the rules, yet hesitating to ask the umpire to enforce them for fear of looking bad. That's not normal. It's a player conditioned to believe that advocating for herself could lead to public backlash. Coco said she constantly considers her maturity level because every action is scrutinized. One wrong move could trigger criticism and personal attacks. She had to carefully express her frustration while keeping her words measured, ensuring she communicated respectfully so people would respect her stance. That's an enormous amount of emotional labor for a teenager to manage, all while trying to win a high-stakes tennis match. And she had to do it because the umpire refused, or failed, to enforce basic rules, which is completely unacceptable. Eventually, the match escalated to the point where the umpire issued a point penalty to Siegmund, shifting momentum decisively in Coco's favor. Siegmund rallied briefly, pulling the score back to 5-4, but Coco served out the set and won the match 3-6, 6-2, 6-4. She survived, advanced, and went on to win the entire tournament, claiming her first Grand Slam title at age 19. Yet this first-round match almost derailed everything because an umpire couldn't, or wouldn't, enforce objective rules consistently. Now, the post-match press conference with Laura Siegmund reveals a stunning lack of self-awareness about what actually happened.
It's the first time I'm crying in a press conference. As a tennis player, you are a performer. You owe the people. You owe the kids that watch. And I'm just a bit, at the end of the day, I go home and I can look at myself and I can say, I did a great job. But did I get anything from the people for that? Even less than a zero, because they treated me bad. Like, they treated me like I was a cheater, like I was like trying, sneaky ways to win this match or something. They treated me like I was a bad person. But there are people who are throwing rackets, who are screaming, who are like making bad gestures toward the audience. I did not one moment in the whole match, and there was a lot of tension going on. Not one moment I did anything. I was just slow. And that's something in the rule. I get my time violation. That's fine. Yeah. No, I don't know.
During her post-match press conference, Laura Siegmund was emotional and crying. She spoke about how tennis players are performers who owe the audience something. She said she could go home and tell herself she did a great job, but she felt like she received nothing from the crowd, describing it as a flat zero, or even less, because the audience treated her poorly. She claimed they treated her like a cheater, someone using sneaky tactics to win, a bad person. Siegmund insisted she never threw rackets, screamed, or made offensive gestures. She emphasized that, despite the tension, she never did anything wrong. In reality, Siegmund repeatedly violated the shot clock, used every stalling tactic available to disrupt Coco's rhythm, and complained about her opponent playing at a normal pace. These actions are not the behaviors of someone playing fairly. They are gamesmanship meant to gain an unfair advantage. She also tried to play the victim regarding the minor time violation she received, implying the crowd was overreacting. But the crowd's frustration wasn't about her being slow, it was about her repeatedly breaking the rules while the umpire gave her a pass, forcing Coco to advocate for herself just to get equal treatment. Siegmund's final comments were particularly revealing. She compared herself to players who throw rackets or make rude gestures, implying she was treated unfairly compared to them. But the crowd's reaction wasn't about her demeanor, it was about her conduct. Breaking the shot clock 4 times is not the same as being polite while playing fairly. The fact that Siegemund still doesn't understand why the crowd turned against her shows either a genuine lack of awareness or a deliberate attempt to maintain a victim narrative. Even 2 years later, this match is still referenced. Sky Sports commentator Jonathan Overend previewed the 2025 Wuhan Open matchup between Coco and Siegemund, citing tension from their 2023 US Open clash. He noted Siegemund's reputation as a famously slow player and the frustration over delays in that match. When asked about facing Siegemund again, Coco remained professional, calling her a tricky and experienced opponent and acknowledging it would be another tough match. Behind the diplomacy, however, Coco remembered exactly what happened in 2023 and prepared accordingly. The 2023 US Open first-round match exposed several broader problems with tennis officiating. First, umpires are inconsistent in enforcing clear, objective rules like the shot clock. A measurable rule should be applied every time without exception. Yet umpires often give players leeway based on subjective factors like reputation or perceived intent, creating unfairness. Second, umpires are too willing to entertain complaints about opponents following the rules. Siegemund's complaint about Coco serving too fast should have been dismissed immediately. There's no rule against serving at normal pace. Third, younger or less established players often receive harsher treatment from officials than veterans. Coco was 19 and in her second full year on tour, while Siegemund had over a decade of experience. This power dynamic influenced how the umpire handled complaints. Fourth, the immense public pressure on young players to be mature and respectful creates an impossible standard. They cannot advocate for themselves without scrutiny. Coco had to think about her image and perception while dealing with an officiating disaster, a burden no teenager should face. The instant regret from the situation came from multiple directions. The umpire likely regretted inconsistent enforcement once the controversy erupted. Siegemund regretted her tactics backfiring when the crowd turned against her and she became the villain. The WTA likely regretted the optics of biased officiating in such a high-profile match. But Coco had no regrets. She stood up for herself, demanded fair treatment, maintained composure, and went on to win the tournament. For her, this was vindication. The 2023 US Open first-round match between Coco Gauff and Laura Siegemund will be remembered as one of the most controversial officiating moments in recent tennis history. Not because of a line call or a judgment on a let, but because an umpire refused to consistently enforce a clear, objective rule. Siegemund violated the shot clock 4 times with minimal penalty, while Coco followed the rules and faced criticism. Coco had to demand fairness from the chair before the official finally did her job. The fallout became a national conversation about officiating bias, and even 2 years later, people still reference how poorly the situation was handled. Smash like and subscribe for more breakdowns of officiating disasters that nearly destroyed iconic moments in sports.